Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the TinyMCE webinar on how to increase your collaboration through some of the newest features that we've added over the last couple of months. Here's a quick agenda of what we're going to cover. All right, let's start with what is TinyMCE? If you haven't used this before, we are a JavaScript based rich text editor component. We are the little box that you see inside most websites. If you need to create content, text-based content with some photos, with some embedded videos. You can see here in Shopify, we are in millions of websites and web apps across the world. We fit a lot of different use cases. We're used in learning management systems, document management systems, internal email systems that people have bought, customer service system. The application is pretty endless because you can use it to create text in whatever you need. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. That's the part that we're going to look at. So to get started, I'm going to pitch it over to Marina to talk about a few basics on setting up Tiny before we get into the feature enhancement.
Yes. So thank you, Brad. And I'm going to quickly take over here to talk about the setup of this webinar today. So, this webinar, as Brad mentioned, we're using a CMS solution. Content creators, website managers, journalists who don't have coding skills want to be able to use a very intuitive UI. And that's why we picked the solution. But also, one of the features that we're showcasing today is the enhanced code editor, and developers would really love a customizable backend, and they also want to be confident in this sort of HTML output that is clean and presentable and compliant to certain quality standards. So being able to control the HTML and showing you how to do that. And the basic setup of this is I have a GitHub repository over here in the slides that you can click into and find. I can also show you the GitHub repository here. It's called the TinyMCE webinar December 2024. And it's going to go over all of the features that we will be talking about in this webinar. And basically, what you need to do is clone this repository to run npm i. And then once you run npm run dev, install specific environment variables, you should be able to get this fully integrated demo that we're going to build today right out of the box. And then if we were to think about code, the way this repository is set up, and I just want to go over this very quickly, is that we have a main app.jsx file that represents this application over here that we have running. And this section, this component on the left side is the blog component, and the right side is the sidebar component. And then one thing to be noted, we're going to be doing a quick demo in a read only mode. And at that point, this toggle over here, this toggle read-only mode is passed in as a prop to the sidebar component as well as the blog component. And it's handled by this editor reference over here. That's kind of where you need to think about app.jsx. If otherwise, everything else is going to be, we're going to be working primarily off of Tiny Editor JSX. Then I have every other function for you loaded in the comments, server generation, template functions, and AI functions. All right, so that's kind of the basic setup. We also have other resources for you. This application that we are building today is in React. Of course, React is not the only way you can build TinyMCE. You can build it into your Angular, Vue, Blazor, over 12 plus integrations in those projects. We also have a wonderful 2-minute video for you to set up TinyMCE in your web application, as well as links to the quick start. So feel free to check that out if you want to know how to set up TinyMCE from scratch.
Perfect. Thank you for that intro. So we are going to be walking through a handful of feature enhancements we've had in the last quarter, starting with the enhanced code editor. Also, I was a little remiss at the beginning. If you would like to download a copy of the slides that have all of these links in them, you can get them at the URL in the scroll going across the bottom of the screen right now. I will also add that to the webinar chat after we get through everything and before we wrap up. So with that, Rena, can you walk us through to get started on the use case, and let's talk about the enhanced code editor.
Yes, happy to do that. So let's go back to the use case. And So we all know about and most likely have heard about the code editor plugin. So that's usually installed by code, downloading code into your plugin's options and then adding code to your toolbar or your menu bar option, in this case, the toolbar. It shows up right over here. And what this does is let's say you have some content. I have this blog example set up over here. I'm going to paste that in and you can look at the source code, and what it does is it opens up this new modal, and this looks all fine. But if you were going to be editing this HTML, or you wanted this to be formatted and you want the indentation to look right, it's pretty hard to actually edit out of the box. This probably gives you a simple solution to maybe copy this code and take it elsewhere out of your workflow. And this is not very ideal for a developer or an advanced content creator who really wants their template or their article to look a very specific way. So, what we have for you is the Enhanced Code Editor plugin, but the new addition in Tiny, I believe, 7.3 release is that we have this new format code button that allows you to automatically format your code, indent it, and look nice out of the box. In order to do that, we're going to go back to our TinyMCE editor option, and we're just going to simply change this code to advanced code. And that's how you bring in the advanced or enhanced code editor plugin into your TinyMCE editor. So once we do that, and I have this already running as an app over here. So once we do that, I'm going to close this so you can see that better. I'm going to refresh this page a little bit and copy the same blog over. And look at that. We have an enhanced code editor. You can automatically see all of the syntax highlighting, the indentation that is a lot better. And this actually looks very readable to someone who's a developer. You can, for example, let's say something was you made a lot of edits in your something like that. In one click, you can click format code and it will automatically format this HTML for you. You can also have this useful tool to copy code instead of like dragging everything and dropping. Then you can toggle between dark and light mode, which is available, as well as increase and decrease the size. Now, this is great, but I want to show there's also a few options that you can actually enhance your experience. Typically in a CMS, you don't want to go out of your workflow, which means you also might not want to go outside your editing space. You want to contain, this code option in your editing space. So one of the options in the enhanced code editor is being able to set it up inline, so such that this box actually shows up within this editing space rather than as a pop-up modal. This is also great in terms of like accessibility, because typically there are, depending on the screen reader, even though TinyMCE's default modal is accessible, it's typically a better bet to use inline editing. So the way to do that is you just add in advanced code inline true, and then let's see, I'm going to refresh it a few more times and do that. And then if I open it up, you can see that this code editor, instead of opening it up as a modal, opens up right within my editor, which is great. You can ask it to format code, the same dark and light mode, and then these options. So for example, you can see that I've increased the font size, changed it to dark mode. If I hit save, and I go back, it actually remembers within that session what my settings was for the enhanced code editor. And then one more thing that is new in terms of the advanced code editor is this option, which is called the advanced code editor prettify get content. So typically in the past when you did, and this is for folks who are trying to save, in a workflow, trying to save the content of the editor from a CMS into maybe a database, you kind of get back your HTML content. So in this, instead of hard coding prettify equals true in your tinymce.get content API call, you can just simply in your editor initialization set advanced code prettify get content to true, and which is, by the way, set to false by default. So you would have to set this to true in order for your get content to be automatically prettified for you. So those are the three big highlights of the Enhanced Code Editor plugin. It's definitely an upgrade if you are someone who's working with HTML constantly, or you have a use case where your HTML or your template or your content needs to look and feel a specific way. As a developer, I love this IDE like experience right within my rich text editor, and it's kind of just great to play around with and be able to control what I see and what I get out of the editor. So that is a quick way on how to get Enhanced Code Editor plugin and all the new and great things with it in TinyMCE 7.3.
Thank you for that walkthrough. We're really committed to improving the developer experience. I mean, we are a company that builds a tool for developers. It's a strategic focus for us in the coming year. You're going to see a lot of new uh, adjustments, if you will, to make things easier for a developer, make life easier. That's kind of the goal. Enhanced Code Editor is definitely one of those. Anytime, I think we've all had to like Alt Tab or Command Tab to use those third-party tools, and the context switching just eats up so much time. So we hope that Advanced Code Editor will help you reduce some of that in the future. We're going to move on now to look at our comments module and some changes that we made there recently.
So TinyMCE has had comments for a while. Over here in the slides, we've again have for you the comment overview to check out what we have in the feature overall, as well as a link to our documentation. Basically, what's new with comments is we have a newly refreshed UI that we believe is going to be much more intuitive for your users. It's going to allow your users to quickly navigate between all of the comments and also just make reviewing sessions a lot faster. Comments now also work in this read-only mode. So if you know something about TinyMCE, you know that you can actually set the editor using the editor API to be in read-only mode. And this is usually passed in by saying read-only. This is usually passed in by saying you can set read-only to be true in the editor. And once you do that, you should be able to sort of toggle your editor between read only mode and not read only mode. So that's a very cool thing. And what you can do now with comments is you can actually see all of the comments in read only mode, and you can also see all of the comments at once without actually like having to edit and move things around in one side panel. We're also going to go over mentions, so you can mention other users who are collaborating with you, similar to like that Google Docs like experience where you can mention your fellow collaborators on specific comments. So the way to do that is we're going to have to do two plugins, which we're going to have to bring in. I'm going to bring in the TinyMCE, I believe it's called Tiny Comments plugin, as well as the Mentions plugin, in order to showcase what's new with comments. And then what I'm going to do is, again, as I mentioned, to save a little bit of time, I am going to show you some of the predefined functions that I've already set up for comments. So first, we created this server gen, which basically is a mock database, and it creates a database of different users. So for example, this is me, this is the current user, and then we have it setting up a database of a bunch of fake or mock users. We do this using this library called faker.js. Ideally, in a production environment, what you will be doing is setting up an actual database of users and pulling it in from there. Instead of doing that, I wanted to keep the project simple, so that's why we're using a mock database. Once we have that, we have this file called comments function, and it has all of the methods and functions that you need to make comments and mentions work together. So I have set up mentions fetch that basically pulls in a set of users and in order to be able to mention them when you do the at symbol. I also have hover set up, as well as menu complete and mention select set up. And then another function that we need to have set up is tiny comments can resolve. This is for the comments plugin in order to be able to resolve those plugins and mark them as done. So these are sort of the main things that you need to set up. Once you have all of this function set up in the backend, what you can do is you can actually, I'm going to go ahead for now, and import these functions. So I had Mentions fetch, as I said, it's going to fetch some users. Mentions, actually, let, let me copy this from here so that you don't see me typing for a lot of time over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to go ahead and add comments. Maybe this is a good place to add comments here. So I'm going to go ahead and say add comment and show comments. So that will enable my comment plugin to show up in the toolbar itself. And then another thing that I'm going to do over here is add a menu bar item to show TinyMCE comments. Again, that would be able to add comments, show comments, and also have the option to delete all conversations in the event that I'm sort of done reviewing all of the changes. And then in order to have mentions available for my TinyMCE instance, I would need to say TinyMCE comments mention enabled true. And that's when I will be able to use the @ symbol. And then these are the following. Again, as I said, this is pretty uh simple and straightforward. You need to set these up in the back end for yourself. And then this is sort of the default settings that you set up for menu mentions. So once you have mentions set up, we can move on to sort of comments. And for comments, what you need to set up is first the author information. So TinyMCE comments author, and that is the current user.id. Then we have current user.fullname, that is the author name. Then what I will do is I'll go ahead and say that the comment also has an avatar. So the ability to see those images of the person who's being commented on. And then another feature that I would like is by default, if I have comments enabled, and if I want to have a sidebar that just shows all the comments. If you remove this, it won't show it by default. You have to click the comments to see all of the comments in that. But in this case, if someone actually does comment, it's a good way to see that. And then finally, there are two basic modes in which you can implement comments. The first mode, and maybe I'll do this here. The first mode is TinyMCE comments mode, and it's embedded. The other mode is the callback mode. The difference is embedded mode, all of your comments, and I'm going to show you this, is going to be stored right within your content HTML. This can be ideal for some use cases, depending on how you want to store your comments. If you want to have a separate database or a separate table for them within your database, or you just prefer storing it all in the same content. The other way to do it is the callback mode, where you have a separate server that you can send all of your comments to and store it separately. Again, one is server side. We always probably recommend the server side way to do it for production, but I can definitely see lightweight use cases where if you don't see yourself having too many comments, but you'd still like this feature, I'd highly recommend the embedded mode. And then finally, one more thing that you need is the ability to resolve your comments. So bring that function in, and then you should be good to go. So hoping that I did everything right and there is no code errors. I'm going to make sure I brought in tiny comments, mentions. I'm showing the comments. I'm setting all of that to true. I'm going to go back to my browser, and I did do something. Let's debug live. Current user is not defined. Okay, so current user is not defined. I believe I had current user here in server gen. So if I just bring in, all right, that's a simple mistake. It can happen to anyone. All right, here we go. And now I have everything set up for comments to work. As I said, it might look a little daunting at first, but very quickly, the way to do it is you install your plugins option, you add your toolbar plugins, you add it to your menu bar, especially if you want to delete all conversations. And then you set up all of your mentions options as well as comments options and the respective functions, and you should be good to go. So let's just see how this works in action. So let's go back. And if you remember, I had that wonderful blog post about Iceland. Fun fact, it's actually one of the places I traveled to this year. So here we have this blog post on Iceland. Let's maybe add an image to make it look pretty. center it. All right, this looks great to me. And now let's say my current user has some comments. Has this been checked for SEO? Oh, wait, they had another thought and they actually are going to tag me. And they're going to say, hey, can we check for SEO keywords on the entire article? Sweet. And that way you can see my comment mention has been quickly done. And then this sort of like the capability of being able to hover over the mention and quickly seeing who they are and their role is a pretty great feature as well. Threaded comments, again, is a really great feature. Let's add a few more comments, expand on this more. And as you can see, the threaded comment previously automatically hit itself unless we have more. And then maybe another feature over here is, well, there's no footer. And maybe this company says, well, we need a footer over here. So please add the company standard footer. And that's it. And then one more thing, as I promised, is in read-only mode. These comments, you can still view all of the comments, but the read-only setting will apply to the comment as well, as in you can't edit any of the comments, but you can certainly view all of them and the threads within them. So that is the comments plugin, the ability to view all comments together, the ability to mention your fellow coworkers and allow users to quickly go between comments, and the ability to see it in read-only mode.
And that's a huge sort of power up to collaboration using the component. Renat, you mentioned you turned on the ability to resolve comments. Can you just demo that really quick?
Yes.
Where that
So
function is?
yes, I'm going to turn off read-only mode for that, but you can quickly either delete the conversation or resolve the conversation. Oh, current author is not defined. Of course, this would happen when
Well, of
I'm.
course, and that was something that we didn't script ahead of time, obviously. But that would be when all the code is there, that it would resolve from there, and you would be able to, clean up the workflow. You
Yes.
mentioned the wire up being a little daunting, but if someone were coding this from scratch, right, building all of these comments and all these mentions, how much work? We're talking hours and hours and hours to get the same result, right?
Yes. I mean, this is basically setting up a server side, two databases, maybe one to hold all of your users and the other one to hold all of your comments if you're in callback mode. If you're in embedded mode, great. You're just having it within your content. As you can see over here, it's the span indicates where the comment has begun and end, the type of comment, all of that. So I would say it's probably 2 to 3 hours of heads down coding if you wanted
Yeah.
to get this completely set up from start to end with TinyMCE. But if you wanted to add in your own custom comments bar and do all of that with our editor API, that can take multiple sprints for a developer. So this just you get almost Google Docs like collaboration right out of the box with TinyMCE. So it's pretty great and just saves you a lot of dev time to do this. And it's a great feature, especially if you have a solution like this where you have multiple authors who might be looking at the same piece of content, and there's compliance requirements and checks, and you need an in-house solution where you can't put this content out on Google Docs and have it translated. So
Yep. And more and more of us are working on remote teams, or even if you're just if you are in an office, but it's a very large company, being able to track the different contributions of your team members can be invaluable, especially from a compliance standpoint if you're in a heavily regulated industry. Now, I'm going to improv one more thing. When you've been doing your copying and pasting, can you go back to the file where you're grabbing the blog content?
yes.
So just want to point out that this is formatted in Markdown. And we also have a Markdown module that when we're going to paste that in, just takes care of the formatting, moves it all over to HTML.
And that comes with one word that you have to add to your editor configuration. You just add Markdown to your plugins option and you get seamless, for the lack of a better word, copy paste from your Markdown to your editor out of the box.
Yeah, we're both giggling because we were talking about AI markers recently, and the word seamless pops up a lot.
Yeah,
Seamless.
which is why I cringed a little bit saying seamless myself.
Fair. Okay. Thanks for that very thorough walkthrough of comments. So now we're still working in our CMS. We're writing this really great travel blog post, and we have some templates that can help us with this if we're in a, maybe in a company where we're publishing blogs every day, something that can help save us time and enforce standards that our company may have. So I will turn it back over to you, Marina.
Templates has been around in TinyMCE for a long time, since almost
Hmm.
TinyMCE 5, I want to say. But what we have for you is the ability to lock down some of your pre-written templates. So in TinyMCE 7.4, we actually have this new read-only templates feature where you can actually protect the entire category of templates from being accidentally moved or altered. And it just makes sense because you don't want to give that ability to change templates, because it is a template, to everyone across the board. And you still want the ability to use the template within the editor, and then you can make the changes that you need. So again, as because this is a webinar and I don't want to take up too much time just live coding, as much as I love to live code with everyone over here, the way to bring down templates is you call it advanced templates. um Advanced template, I believe, is the plugin name. And then we're going to bring in a few things in addition to templates. I already have merge tags pulled in, because a big part of templates, typically merge tags and template plugin go hand in hand. Merge tags is the ability to be able to reuse specific pieces of content through a template or through an editor instance without having to retype it and standardize it across your content. And then here, once we have both of that, I'm actually going to bring in merge tags into my toolbar option. And I'm also going to bring in insert template and add template into my toolbar option. Great. And then it doesn't just work, it's just not that simple yet. What you do need to do is, after that, you need to set your context. Oops, I can type. You need to set your context menu to have advanced template in it. And then what we need to do is, because we are there's a few ways in which you can think about templates. Like, you can have predefined templates out of the box, but what we're talking about is having user modifiable template lists in the end, and then creating a section of them that is not modifiable. So in order to do that, that use case gets a slightly more complicated, in the sense that you do need to define a set of functions. So if I go back, I'm going to actually show you how I set that up. So I have, again, this is my mock template data store for the CMS use case. So I have reusable block contents, and then I'm saying this is locked. So in read-only mode, this is the only read-only template list in this category. And then this list people can edit, which is the content template. That's product page template, blog post. I'm not too worried about that. But things related to the company, like header blog, hero section, footer blog, I don't want anyone editing that. So that's how I've set up the data structure. This is really important for this new feature that we're talking about. It's actually as simple as just saying locked equals true, and then our UI knows from that to lock the UI and not give the capability of editing. So once you have your template store in your database set up correctly, or your data set up correctly, I also have a list of merge tags set up over here. That I wanted to quickly show. This is sort of all related to the CMS use case. I don't think we need to see every single one of them, but just wanted to show a few. And then what I'm going to do is set up a mock response, because all of these functions in the templates options, whether it's get template, create category, create template, they're all expecting a promise to be resolved with a very specific set of data. Again, most of these was going to happen on the server side, where you're probably pinking something like get categories or get, or post uh, template and delete it and things like that. So you're making a lot of get and post requests over here. But for the purposes of this, what I've decided to do is I'm basically taking my template store and mocking the data to return hard coded templates out of the box. So in this case, you would actually make get and post requests here. Just want to emphasize that this is not how you would do it in production. This is just for this example. So once you have all of these returning basically a promise that returns your data, or you have a way to delete that specific data, for example, in delete template, I'm basically splicing the array. What you can do is you can actually bring that whole list of functions over here, which is all of this. And I am going to quickly go ahead and import all of those functions from my template functions. Sweet. I also have this thing called merge tags list because we need to be able to push in my list of merge tags that is available for that plugin. And then one more thing that is important is all of my merge tags, the way it works within this editor, let's see if I can quickly show you this, is going to be site.title, but the way I'm going to, and this is sort of industry standard for merge tags, is going to have two curly braces for as a prefix and a suffix. So you need to make sure to define that for merge tags to work out of the box. And then I also have, let's say, you have very specific standards in terms of your content. A lot of CMSs have a specific way to highlight merge tags. You can also specify that. I actually, if you go to source and styles, I already have something set up. This is kind of our company color, so I set it up based on that. You can set it up based on your company and content guidelines. So once I have that, all of that set up, I can go ahead and copy this blog, but I can go back to my editor. Let's refresh this a few times. I can see that I have all of the merge tags that I had loaded, like site title, site name, all of that out of the box. And then I have a list of inserting templates and content templates. And the interesting thing over here is, oops, there we go. Let me paste this in. And the interesting thing here is, if you remember in the data store for templates, I had actually marked this category as locked to true, just as a refresher. And as you can see, that is now locked, it means that this template is in read-only mode. And you cannot actually edit or move any of this out of this specific category. But you can still add new categories, let's say blog posts or something like that. You can still rename it, you can still delete things, you can maybe even move outside of it. All of this is still possible, but you can't do that with all of the log templates. And that's the new sort of big feature within this. And then, it still works. For example, if I decide to use a footer for this article, and I want to have all of these links and as just prescribed, you can see that works. And then you can see my CSS has been applied over here for this specific use case. I can also replace this merge tag, just showing off a few other features that we have in terms of templates and merge tags. So yeah, the new big thing is we have templates. Now we have a read-only mode on templates, but templates plus merge tags in the context of some sort of collaborative editor with a lot of guidelines and structure is extremely powerful for developers and creators alike.
It is true. It is very powerful for collaboration, communication. Even if you don't have a feature like this in your solution today, then you probably have maybe just a Google Doc, right, with all of those snippets that you want people to paste in, and that introduces potential user error. If something changes, do they have the latest and greatest of whatever it is? With this particular setup and the read-only templates, your content administrator can go in, or your legal person for the footer, update the privacy notice, update the copyright, whatever needs to happen as we are moving into another year again, and really not even have to tell anyone, right? As long as we all know, well, that footer always goes in there, it's always up to date and ready to go. Did not take a moment before we hopped into that to mention, as far as resources go, again, if you download these slides later, we have links to the templates feature on our main website, and then a link to the documentation as well. So when you're trying to set this up for yourself, in addition to Marina's expert instruction, you also have a little bit of documentation to go with it. So our last feature is that we're going to look at is our AI assistant. It has made an appearance in a few of these webinars this year because we all know AI is everywhere at this point. And specifically, we're going to look at a translation feature that we added in the last couple of months.
So, as Brad mentioned, AI is very global, and we believe that not only a lot of our users, but a lot of our customers' users also are very global, which means text is not always written in English. And what we decided is we have a set of predefined prompts that we provide right out of the box for our AI shortcuts plugin, or for our AI shortcuts toolbar option within the AI plugin. And we have added the translations, a set of, I believe, 7 to 8 very common and popular translations that will just come right out of the box with the AI assistant for you to use with your users. And they can modify the suggested translation right within the editor. They don't have to like select the text, go to Google Translate, hit translate, or go to ChatGPT, paste it in, and translate it and bring it back to the editor. So it really just brings that workflow right back into the editor. Again, to save time, I have actually a lot of the AI. Well, let's do a quick overview. Even though, as Brad mentioned, I have demoed the AI a few times in these webinars. The way to install AI in TinyMCE is to bring in AI as a plugins option, and then maybe over here, you can add the AI dialogue and AI shortcuts. Actually, I'm going to quickly check. It is shortcuts. Okay, cool. I wanted to check the documentation to make sure it's shortcuts. So you add the AI dialogue and AI shortcuts, and then finally, what you need is an AI request function. If I can type, that would be great. So once you bring in that AI request function, as I showed you here, I actually already have it set up for us. Basically, what I'm doing is I have an OpenAI key that I'm storing in my environment variable. And then I have this to set it up to respond as a stream to make it a very familiar UI. I have all the AI options set up over here. And, it communicates with OpenAI's completions API and gets me a response. That is great. And it worked right out of the box. Typically, the reason I pulled this again out is because this should ideally live on a server side implementation, especially if you're in a production environment. I wanted to be able to show this code to you, but that's kind of our recommendation, or have a proxy server that kind of connects both OpenAI API to your Tiny instance. But the AI request ultimately just returns the stream. So you basically respond with a stream, and then you respond with all of the chunks of messages that the AI API returns to you. With that said, all of that, if set up correctly, should show up right here. And as you can see, this is the AI dialog box, a blog about Iceland. Let's hope my AI works today. Cannot be the day. Oh, there it is. Just took a little bit. All right. Sweet. And now let's say I want to translate all of this to French. I can hit that, and those prompts are what we have updated and now offer out of the box for you as part of AI shortcuts. And one really important thing to know about this is all of these prompts, this is just an array of arrays. And you can look at our tiny.cloud docs with the AI assistant to see how it is set up. But you can actually customize all of these prompts. So if you had more, or you had different languages that you are catering to, you can more than happily sort of change that and adapt that to that specific language as well.
Yep. So, I mean, really, we support any translation language that the AI can support in that case. Also, when you're customizing prompts or going in to look at customizing prompts, again, consider the use case of your application. In this case, content management system or publishing blog posts. You could write some, and what you're seeing there in the menu is really just a short description. Your prompt can be, you know, paragraphs long if you want it to be, because we all know sometimes giving very specific instructions most of the time to AI helps. So you could have a prompt that's optimized for SEO, and it could be, ensure headers are, properly formatted and follow a sequential order, as well as do this, as well as do this, and really give your content creators some very powerful tools to help in their creation process. So that has brought us to the end of the new features we wanted to walk you through today. These have come out in the last 2 or 3 releases of TinyMCE. If you want to stay up with the latest on all of our releases, you can follow this URL, and we have a summary page. Every time we have a release, we'll have links to feature overviews, to documentation, really everything you need to get up to speed on what the latest enhancements are in TinyMCE. If you're not a current TinyMCE user, all of these features are available in our paid plans. You can start a 14-day free trial that gives you access to all of our paid features to, kick the tires, really understand how Tiny can be used in your organization. Would love for you to, do that. And also, if you ever have any questions, you can hit us up. You can, contact our sales team. Plenty of people ready to help you out with that. We've got big plans for producing a lot more video content in 2025, feature overview type content, and also deep technical dives, a little deeper than, you saw today. So subscribing to the YouTube channel is a great way to stay up with everything we're going to do in the next year. All
Yes.
right. With that, I think we will wrap it up.
Thank you so much. Happy coding.